What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today when I talk to you about SoundHound, I want to go over some of the current data points, break it down on what is really moving it, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So SoundHound is up 1.62%, 927 the low, 973 the high, and you were seeing very low volume. So 14.9 million shares being traded, 28.1 is the average. Of course, we're heading into a long weekend, so I think that usually does have a kind of lower volume, so nothing really abnormal. But during the pre-market, we did have quite the scare, and so Trump kind of woke up on the wrong side of the bed because he decided to target Apple as well as the EU. So Trump did threaten a 50% tariff on the EU, and that is essentially starting June the 1st. So kind of crazy on how this is all developing, but I think the writing's been on the wall because there's been quite a few posts recently saying that the EU and the States are having different mindsets for tariffs, that things aren't going essentially according to plan. So I think this was maybe Trump's next big thing, but basically, if you kind of follow the yields on a lot of the treasury yields, it goes to show that the market, even though he's stating this, they don't believe that this is actually going to come to fruition, because we've seen this time and time again. This seems to be Trump's thing, where he just has a very high tariff and then he usually uses that as a bargaining chip or a scare tactic. Then he kind of pulls back. So the market seems to be recovering because of that. One thing that also came out first thing that the market seems to be liking is also this. So it is estimated that a initial trade agreement with India is going to be established in the next 7 to 10 days. So pretty good stuff as far as that. It goes over some of the key highlights for this. So let me know your viewpoint on that in the comments below. Today, there wasn't any real substantial data points really moving the market or anything. SoundHound, there hasn't been any news, no SEC filing, so it's just been pretty much at the mercy of the broader market. One thing I do want to bring up though, associated to Analysts, even though we haven't had that many new ratings, the last one was done 11 days ago, pretty much all encumbering associated to their earnings, but you did have analysts changing their estimates. So I always like to look at this just to see if there's any changes and what's been happening, because I think a lot of people don't understand the fact that analysts can change their estimates without changing their actual rating. So what I mean by that is, for instance, Daniel Ives, who gave a rating 14 days ago, $15 buy, he could go and change a lot of his estimates without giving a new rating. So even though it does show 14 days, there could be a lot of changes happening behind the scenes. And long story short, you do see the revenue estimate for 2025 did go up roughly around 5 million. So analysts are becoming a little bit more optimistic on SoundHound, so that's kind of a good thing. So right now it is sitting at 159.64 million in revenue, and that's for 2025, a 88.49% year-over-year growth. So pretty good stuff as far as that. So let me know your viewpoint on that. When it comes down to shorts, they aren't really doing all that much. Even looking here, they pretty much are flat for the most part, currently increasing 44,000 shares. 31.45% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 114.81 million shares overall are being shorted. Again, leading into a long weekend. Normally, shorts do return a little bit, right? Because they don't want to pay that cost to borrow for unnecessary days when they don't have to. So at the end of the day, that's kind of a good thing. So you might see during power hour, a little bit of a jump up as shorts do kind of return a little bit more. So let me know your viewpoint on that in the comments below. But generally, as you can kind of see, shorts haven't really been doing that much over the last week and a half. So kind of interesting as far as that. So maybe they're waiting for the next big thing to kind of either justify doubling down or potentially kind of returning some shares. So we'll wait and see what plays out from that. But looking at the options, 1.85 million in calls, 1.06 in puts, 41% of all the options being done are bullish in nature, and most of which is kind of during this last hour as SoundHound is starting to recover. So a lot of optimism is starting to kind of surge back in, which is definitely welcomed. Yesterday there was 6.4 million, day prior 6.6. So today's a little bit low for the overall options volume, but then again, it kind of matches with the common stock. Based on the bulls, you see consensus for it to be roughly around that 10 to 1050 going into next week, and then the bears for it to be sub roughly 950. So kind of interesting with today being Friday. Just take note of this. So this is all the open interest. So you have 823 at the 950. So not really all that much. You do have 7,000 at that 10. So for whatever reason, in the next couple hours, if SoundHound does start to build up some momentum, get close to the $10 range, you might have shorts increase a little bit just to kind of suppress it. But something to keep in mind, these are all the transactions occurring on the secondary market above $100,000. So not all that much, but then again, it kind of does match with the overall lower volume. And everything is biased with the exception of these two. So this one is a sell, 2.57 million, and then 429,000. Aside from that, big money seems to be really buying the dip. Even dark pool, very popular today as per usual. So you have a couple big ones right here, 1.14, and most of the time this is used by shorts. So just be somewhat aware of that. With it right now at 967, it is trading between this S1 and this S2. Pretty much neither have been touched, and most likely both won't really be touched in my opinion, at least for today. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see how that does play out going into next week. So I guess on Tuesday, so 919 is going to be a strong support. 993 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. No new articles. Actually, there was one kind of interesting article that did come out, and that aside from all the ambulance chasers, it was just showing that SoundHound has a opportunity to really hit a home run. And I'll have to kind of find that. See, this is what is kind of daunting and really annoying about a lot of these ambulance chasers. They take up a huge amount of all the PRs. Even looking on SoundHound, like right here, like the latest news is lawsuits. It's very just crappy, but this one right here, so two super AI stocks down 62 and 88% that you'll regret not buying on the dip, which in reality, I think SoundHound does have a huge amount of growth. The sectors that they are trying to target have huge amount of growth. So I think big things might be coming. So definitely I'll leave the link to this article in the description below for those of you that over the weekend want to have a read on maybe things like that and whatever else. But aside from that, on the actual chart itself, it is just stuck between that 100 and 200 day moving average. So 948 is that 200 day moving average, and then 1137 is going to be that 100 day moving average. So it's kind of just wedged bound between those 2 points, orienting a little bit on the downside. So that 200 day is holding up. Aside from that, you also do have that 50 day moving average at 922. So at least SoundHound does have a lot of good support. If for whatever reason a lot of fear does continue to plague the market and it pushes SoundHound lower, then this is where you could see kind of that 8 to 850 coming to fruition, unfortunately. But as far as today is concerned, that 200 day moving average is holding up. So in theory, what normally does happen is it bounces off of either strong support or resistance and then kind of bounces. And so at least going into the next week, you should see some consolidations and at least a move higher. So let me know your viewpoint on SoundHound. Are you buying? Are you selling? The only thing I've done is I did sell a put that is expiring today, 950. So for whatever reason, if SoundHound does close below 950 today, then I'm going to buy, I think it is 500-600 shares of that. So I'm pretty happy with that if that does happen. If not, I keep the premiums. So that's kind of what I'm going to be doing. I really like doing selling puts on stocks that I wouldn't mind owning. So research options for those of you, again, that have time over the weekend, because I feel like it could be very advantageous, especially on times if a stock is going down. Selling puts is kind of a win-win if you ask me. So let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon. I give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been exactly on point. So definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.